Hey, what's going on, guys? So today I'm going to talk about how to set up a quarantine tank for your fish and what the process is during quarantine. So the biggest question is why quarantine? And the short answer to that is to prevent diseases to getting into your main display tank or your main tank. Now I know a lot of people don't quarantine, and that's their choice, and they can roll the dice all they want. But the one time when a fish looks perfectly healthy and it carries a ick disease or marine velvet and comes into your main display tank and wipes out your whole tank that you've had for years or that you spent hundreds and thousands of dollars on in terms of livestock, and it gets wiped out overnight, then you'll know why people quarantine. Now I'm going to go over real quick the basic things that you'll need for a quarantine tank. The very first thing you'll need is a tank. Depending on what fish and what size fish you have, will depend on your tank size. You want a glass tank or a tank that you can see through, because what you're doing during quarantine is observing the fish for any possible diseases. And if you have them in a bucket or a container where you can't see them only from the top, it's really hard to see if your fish is carrying any diseases. I'm not saying that you can't do it with the containers. It's just a little bit more of a hassle and a little bit harder to do it that way. The cheapest way to get a tank is either getting it used or free, or you can wait for a dollar per gallon sale and you can get the tanks for $10 or $20 depending on the size tank you're getting. Next thing you'll need is a sponge filter. This is the cheapest and most effective route to getting tank up and running. They go from anywhere from $5 to $10 depending on the size of the sponge filter. To go along with the sponge filter, you'll need an air pump and air lines. This can range from anywhere from $5 to $10. An airline is about $2. The next thing you'll need is very cheap and basic light. It can range from $10 to $20. You don't need anything fancy. You're basically using it to observe the fish. Since most fish are tropical, you'll need a heater. This is optional. So depending on where you live, if you live in a cooler area, you'll need one. If you live in a hotter area, you probably won't need this. And the last thing is optional. It's media. This is to help jumpstart your quarantine tank fast. For the most part, you'll have existing media on your display tank that you can use. But what I like to do is I like to establish the sponge filter or media in an established tank, and I like to take those and swap them out and put them into the quarantine tank to help jumpstart the tank right away. Then I always backfill those media or sponge filter with new one so that we'll have another one ready to cycle if I ever need it right away for the next quarantine tank. So starting from scratch on the low end, it'll cost you like $60 to get a quarantine up and running. On the higher end, if you're looking to get like a 20 gallon, it could range all the way up to like $100. All right, so let's go through the quarantine process and actually what you're doing during this process. This will vary from person to person. A lot of people will just put the fish into quarantine tank and just observe, and whatever they see, they'll treat. And this is perfectly fine. So what I do is I like to proactively treat some common things that I see in the fish industry. It's ick, internal parasites, and flukes. Those are the really three common things that you'll see. And then for all other diseases that I may see during quarantine, I'll treat for those as necessary. So I treat copper and Paragard right off the bat for 2 weeks. This will get rid of diseases, marine velvet, and any other random parasites they may come along with your fish. I do a deworm on the fish for internal parasites via food, so flakes. This is especially needed for wild-caught fish. You just don't know what they'll get. And the last proactive thing I'll treat is for flukes. The quarantine process for me will last at least 2 months. Most of the common things that you'll see will disappear in 1 to 1.5 months. And the last few weeks of their quarantine will be basically monitoring. Alright guys, I hope this video will help you guys with the quarantine setup and process. If you guys aren't subscribed yet, make sure you guys are subscribed. And like always, till next time guys, peace.